Welcome to the gold standard, Making Millions with Malia, the place to be for conscious CEOs and light leaders who know that they have an enormous mission that requires millions to fuel it. I am your host, Jennifer Longmore, Clear Channel for Mother Malia, along with being a long-standing 8-figure CEO, investor, and board advisor who is committed to creating as many conscious millionaires as I can in this lifetime, and to debunk the broke healer paradigm that tells you it is not benevolent to make millions doing spirit-led work. We are in the midst of individual and collective ascension, and as we ascend, so must the way that we do business and money as light leaders. That is what this show is all about. So tune in now and find out why we are ranked in the top 5% of global podcasts and why savvy CEOs just like you binge our show each week and share it as a high-value resource with their communities. Now let's dive into today's Making Millions broadcast. Ooh, welcome everyone. I'm glad that you are here. We are going to have a very wonderful show with you today. I am, by the way, I'm Mother Malia, as you will know if you're here in the show. And I'm very excited to introduce you to a very, very business savvy, clear channel who had an 8-figure exit. And we are going to hear more about this because I know a lot about this particular business model. And I will say this is one of, I will say, 2 of the hardest business models to scale, let alone scale to the point of exit where it actually holds its value. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Tracy Yates. She is an award-winning 8-figure CEO, a sought-after mentor and business advisor to visionary entrepreneurs and mission-driven CEOs who desire to make a mark on this planet through their work. She has advised Fortune 100 CEOs, innovated for the brands like Google, Apple, Disney, and been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, and LA Weekly. She specializes in guiding 7+ figure CEOs who wish to rapidly scale in their zone of genius, and she helps them unlock the innovation, wealth, and vision previously inaccessible. To reach accelerated personal and business growth to heights that are unimaginable, but of course very possible. And she is known for her supernatural ability to double multi-million-dollar businesses and propel entrepreneurs into a new realm of wealth, impact, and freedom. And she believes the necessary changes in culture and business are born from a deliberate choice within the leaders to expand themselves and lead as the role models of the new paradigm. So welcome, Tracy. It is lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Malia. So lovely to be here. And I can't wait
Yes.
to dive in with you.
Yes, and so for all of you listening, if this is your first time, we have innovated on this show a little bit because, with me channeling the way that I am now, it is actually more enjoyable for me to have guest co-hosts instead of guests because like the show before, it shapeshifted into Making Millions with Malia. Anyone that I had on the show was always through personal invite, and now I am even more deliberate and intentional about who I invite on to co-host with me. And so, Tracy, you are a clear channel, and you are also, because often I say that because often people say, oh, well, if I'm a clear channel, there's only so much I can make for whatever reasons, and yet you are a clear channel, and you had an 8-figure exit.
Yes. Well, and I'd like to begin by saying I used to believe that wasn't possible.
Yes.
Right. And I think a lot of times when we hear stories about success and exits and, they're a little bit glorified. But at the end of the day, it required a lot of work, but it required a lot of imagination.
Oh, yes. Oh, you know how I feel about imagination. Oh, yes.
And I think that is one of the entrepreneur's most powerful tool. It is their imagination, seeing opportunity where other people see obstacles.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, that already has me wanting to ask you many questions. So, is it that we stifle our imagination?
I think, yes, go ahead. Sorry, were you going
Well,
to?
yes. Do we stifle it? Is it there and we just don't use it because we are afraid of what it will create? Is it that we've allowed boredom to seep in? What prevents a CEO from perpetually staying in the field of imagination?
Yeah, well, I think it's truly our beliefs, not just our belief systems and the inner stories that we tell
Mm,
ourselves, but the beliefs around what is possible and how that can occur. And I've truly believe at this point in my journey that we've all mutually agreed to a belief structure that this is how things work and this is how business happens and this is how wealth occurs. And we've all just been operating in it. So to answer your question,
yes.
we can't really access our true imagination because we don't believe it's possible.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I don't know if this is true for you, but I will share, I will use myself as an example because just by nature, I am not someone that follows a lot of rules.
Me neither.
And it is not, I even reflected back on for whatever reason, I was reflecting back on my time in forensics years ago. And my colleagues used to get upset with me because they thought I was cutting corners or something. No, I was just out creating the system. I
Mm-hmm.
did not, there were many people, you see, their filter was, oh, this person has been bad. I will take them to court and the judge will punish them. But there were many things that actually didn't require court appearances. And I had no issue with court appearances. I was very well liked, frankly, by the judges, and I made a very good expert witness. I had no issue being on the stand. I had no issue being cross-examined. I had no issue writing affidavits, although they were very labor intensive. And yes, I was not going to create work for myself just to punish people. If I felt that people will be better served, actually, and the family will be better served by
Mm-hmm.
working with them outside of the legal system, which automatically creates combat. That was what I was trying to avoid, is the energy of combat. I will like you to work with me. So if I invite you into the energy of combat, you have no choice but to battle with me, you know? And
Sure.
so it wasn't always possible. If they were very, very significant crimes, of course, I had to initiate court proceedings. But my point is that people didn't understand because they were just doing what they were told. They did not want to default. And so I was inevitably never going to work all that long. I frankly stayed about 7 years longer than my actual personality type could handle in that. But all of that to say that in 2022, as you might have seen the memes where they have things like dogs that are trained for obedience. Even dogs will use a filter that says that command is not a command I'm willing to follow because it actually bumps up against my sensibilities. It bumps up against my integrity. So even when a dog is highly trained to do exactly what its owner says, especially if we say of police dogs, etc., if it is given a command that simply does not resonate, it will not follow it. And so, of course, in 2020, you can imagine how I was moving through the world, and most people listening know that. But the point is, in business, this is why we see, I believe, so much cookie cutter stuff out there. People say, oh, well, that is the key to success. So I will just emulate that person and therefore I will have success. And now I feel entitled to that success because I've hired this person. And just because I've given them money, therefore I am entitled to the results. But they're not understanding that there are many variables as to why someone's methodology works for them and why it will not work for others, for example. So, to hear that you also didn't follow rules, I suppose, yes, because rule breakers get a bad rap. But in fact, the rule breakers, in my opinion, are the ones that are making the money and, in the field of imagination.
Well, absolutely. And I used to, I naturally see something and just see the opportunities and expand it. That's just what I do. And
Yes.
it's innately within me. And I think a lot of other people have these types of, let's call them innate traits, right? How they're designed. But when I was always looking at something and saying, oh, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, I was called like a rule breaker. It was
Mm.
deemed, wrong or not how you run a business or not how you build a business. And quite honestly, I think that's what we were talking about, right? These cookie cutter business strategies, or you have to do it this, you have to follow this path, you have to do it this way. And
Oh,
not everyone is designed to do what I do what you do, right? So I think the the farther you can get away from the cookie cutter, the more success you will have, and you will feel energized and aligned with what you're doing.
Oh, yes. Yes. And for some people, that is actually gives them a lot of comfort to be able to color inside the lines. There's no judgment around that because that is
No.
literally how people are designed. Even if we look at human design, some people have almost their entire chart defined, perhaps even their whole chart defined. In my human design, I have one defined center. That is it.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not necessarily mean that someone with a lot of definition cannot be creative, but I do feel that there is society works well when we have people that are sort of following certain parameters, I will say. But if we are innovating for the future, it is the rule breakers that are the ones typically that are creating new pathways, I shall say, for humanity, for money, for opportunities, etc. So I'm so glad that you shared this. And, it makes me think because people don't know what company you exited, but you exited a branding agency. So you were
Yes.
already in the field of imagination. And so here you are in a company
Mm-hmm.
that is constantly channeling imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had to almost turn it inwards, so to speak, on your own business model and your own leadership, your own team members, and ways in which you were creating retainers, etc., in order to allow for that. So, will you mind sharing a little bit more about what you learned, from that process of, okay, I will like to scale. Where were you at when you said, I cannot do this anymore? It is either I pack it in, I keep banging my head against the wall, or I just expand this company into greater levels of wealth.
Yes. Well, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs who have reached a certain level of, success, let's call it seven figures, they feel trapped. And I was definitely feeling trapped. I knew that I couldn't keep going the way that I was working. And so, really, what that meant for me is how do I, because when you business revenue, right, scaling business revenue does not necessarily mean higher profits.
Yes.
And so I knew that I wanted to do what really, really excited me in my life. And so I decided, how can I get out of this trap? How can I move into, because I had put years, right, decades of sweat equity into the business.
Yes.
And we know you don't get paid equal dollars from the sweat equity, right?
Yes.
So when with an agency model is most of them are project based businesses, right? Where you're doing RFPs, you're, doing a project for a client, and then potentially you'll build that obviously to become doing more projects for that client, right? That's
Yeah.
ideally how it works. But you can't really sustain, you're not building an asset in that way. You're building relationships, but you need to build
Yeah.
an asset to actually have a valuable company.
Yes.
So in my industry, it was very uncommon to have retainer clients.
Mm.
Most of the businesses were responding to RFPs and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on putting a proposal together, and let alone the work. And anyway, so what I did is I developed retainer clients, and I truly did that with the intention, with the intention of, I want to do the most creative work for my clients. I want them to have the most success. And I want to be excited about what I'm doing. That was
Mm.
truly my intention. It wasn't, my initial intention wasn't to build an 8-figure company and exit it.
Yes, and may I share something simply because you and I have many conversations, and I have a greater understanding. What occurs to me in this moment
Mm-hmm.
is that you are a connector. And the project model is very much transactional. So it was already likely feeling, I will say, for lack of a better term, yucky in your energy field because it worked against your nature. Some people are very actually wired better for transaction. That actually serves them better. So there's no judgment either way. But for you, you value relationship. And I've got to think too, when we are, because you are really the gold standard of your industry, and you were at that time as well when you had your company, that you will like to work with those that are willing to view you as the gold standard and be in a committed relationship with you, so to speak, that they hold enough value that it will actually get you more excited about the projects.
100%. That is my design. And I am relational 100% before I am transactional.
Yes. And, there are many business models, of course, that work with folks that are transactional or don't feel the need to build relationship in business, so to speak. But for you, yes, I love how your imagination helps you to figure that out, because some people would have continued to bang their head against the wall for years and years and had to work harder. It is my experience, and I don't know if you find this as well, that once you hit 7 figures, if things don't change, it actually becomes harder each year to maintain the same revenue. You will think, oh, it requires the same effort. It actually requires more effort to maintain that revenue. And then, of course, that becomes demotivating, because you say, now I'm working harder for the same amount. So I'm actually making less if I'm working harder, because my hourly rate, so to speak, has gone down if I'm having to do double the work for the same amount of money, so to speak. But you and I have spoken privately, and in my opinion, there are two business models that are really very challenging to scale above all others. One is the MLM network marketing model, because the company, you're an intrapreneur basically when you are doing that. You are basically a salesperson getting paid commission, and some people will be upset with me when I say that, but if you're willing to look at the truth of the situation, you will see that's what it is. So yes, it is a business, and yes, you were paying taxes on it, etc. But the company that you work with capture income. They just do.
Yeah.
And I've seen them do this to many people that I know in MLM. They magically change the compensation structure once you get to $1 million earner, etc. And it already is challenging enough to get to be a 1% earner in that business model, because it is not designed to succeed, even though they will sell you that it is, and that it is very easy. And then the agency model, which was your model, because the agency model, as you will know, for those of you that don't have one, it is literally, well, yes, there will be two variables. One is, do you have people on retainer, and do you have gold standard team members? Because it is literally 100% based on how well and how efficiently your team delivers the service that people have paid for.
Yes. And at the standard that you require, right?
Yes.
It's and finding truly like-minded, I would call it like-minded team members. But I think as somebody who is building a business and you get to 7 figures, you can't continue doing the same thing, like you said, that got you to where you are. And I think I've seen plenty of entrepreneurs, I'm sure you have as well, where they've built that on literally sweat equity and duct tape, as you like to
Yes.
say.
Yes.
And that's what creates this grind, because you continually do the same thing over and over. And really, I think what the issue is that entrepreneurs are frightened. They're scared to step out of their company because they believe that it's the only way to keep it going, because that's what they've done before. And that just goes back to imagination.
Yes. Oh, I love that you shared that. And oh boy, did I ever learn a lot from having an agency company. And we have parked it for now, simply because, now that I'm in this new state, it is my brain does not work the same way. So I have to kind of focus on what my brain can focus on now. And we will see what we do with that agency, because of course I still believe in it. But to your point, I've seen people, the journey from 6 to 7 figures is really all about letting go of the stuff that prevents you from really being able to receive and hold money. And at 7 figures, it is, in my opinion, an initiation. That is when the journey just gets started. Because all of a sudden you get there and say, wait a minute, I worked way too hard for this. Do I really want this to be my reality year after year? Usually people say, oh, they look around and say, oh, I am serving way too many people that I actually don't enjoy serving, even though, of course, they are lovely humans. They are just saying, I'm having conversations or I'm engaging in services that got me here, but I've outgrown these services. And of course you have, because if you've outgrown your 6-figure income such that you now have a 7-figure income, it makes sense that you will have outgrown the service delivery, for example, or the products or whatever you have created to get you to this next level. Unless, of course, you hire a CEO to totally remove you from really caring and just letting the company have its own trajectory and basically hire a maintainer really is what we will need to, hire at that point. But if you were to do your business over again
Mm.
and build it to an eight-figure exit,
Mhm.
what will you have done differently or sooner?
Mm. Wow. Well, I think that starting off, I would understand that a business is not designed to be stagnant. It's not, it's designed to expand and grow just like us. And I
Yes.
think a lot of people get into friction because they're growing and expanding as people. Their interests, right? Maybe are shifting, like you said, they're growing in their craft, they want to serve different types of clients, whatever that may be. And they keep their business where it was in a structure or what it was doing. So the first thing, I guess, to answer your question, I would understand that business is designed to evolve as we evolve.
Yes.
The second thing is I would hire a team right away.
Yes.
I would not try to bootstrap it like I did. I bootstrapped my agency. I would not do that again. I would hire a like minded team. And I would also build a team in a very distinct way. I wouldn't build it based upon just their skills. I would
Oh,
build it upon their talents, how they're wired, because you can't have, for example, five of me who are questioning everything and expanding everything. You need to also have executors, right? You need to have people who are questioning everything, like, oh, that questioning ideas. So, really looking at a team from I think they call it a psychometric way, not just
yeah.
skills.
Yes.
So, that would be another thing that I would do. And the third thing is I would look at developing something not based on what the market needs, but where the market is going.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That is so good.
Right? Because we're changing so drastically. I was talking to someone the other day, and she was saying, "Gosh, we have been through so much in the last 3 years as a society, as humanity." And I think we're drastically, rapidly shifting as well. I know you talk about this often. So I think how we are living and how we are working is not going to look like it does now. And so if you want to build something with staying power, I would be looking, we could call it into the future, or looking at trends of where we're going and develop something from there.
Yes, which requires the field of imagination.
Yes, it does.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes, I will share a funny anecdote. Um, Just the other day, I was having a meeting with one of my team members who is new, and they are aware, of course, of my condition, I shall say, and the importance of everything being in divine perfection and everything being distortion free. So I'm
Mhm.
prefacing this for a reason. I recently had my husband took a bunch of new pictures of me in Aruba to capture my essence as Malia in my pure joy. And I've been very clearly instructed not to be doing headshots anymore. And that is not to judge anyone that does. It is to say that those are all fake images, right? None of us are
Mm.
posed like this with our,
No, no.
or we are not posed in a ballroom gown in Starbucks saying, "Oh, I am just working on my laptop and and it is okay because, pictures are art. Don't get me wrong. I understand that that can be very artistic. It can feel like an expression. I'm talking about when you can tell in the picture that that person
Mm.
feels so awkward because
Yeah.
it is not at all how they move through the world. And so Malia has been very clear with me that I am not to get headshots anymore. And I never liked it anyways. I would always drag it because I am one of these people that have never liked getting my picture taken. I will let it get done, but I am similar to the Aboriginal peoples where they just simply they tend to not like their picture taken by why, because it is very sacred to capture someone's image, right? And same with
Mm.
animals, by the way. A lot of times they're not asked, will you like your picture taken, you know?
No, right.
Point is, um, to talk about where the market is going, my team, I said to them, it is, I love everything I do and anything that goes on my calendar, I love. And I wish I could speak with the people all
Mm.
the time, but I can only have so much scheduled time in my calendar because here I am to be. And there is far less being when I am always having my time scheduled, even though it is all stuff I like to do and all people I will very much enjoy speaking with, you know? And she said, well, why don't we find an AI voice that is closest to yours and we can have it record some podcasts for you?
Ah, right.
Exactly. Yes. And that person is no longer with my company. That was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And I share that for a reason because to my point is there are going to be industry trends that also, because for some
Mhm.
people that will work very well. Recently, I
Mhm.
was looking up some things on the computer and these little pop-up commercials come up and it stuns you because you say, oh, there's audio on that. What is happening?
Yeah.
And these commercials I've been hearing recently are all AI generated, and it is
Yeah.
so palpable that it is AI.
Yes.
And so I would like to believe that even if, God forbid, someone did something funny with my voice without my permission, that people would be able to feel the frequency difference, because this is kind of where we are headed. Anyone could craft your voice or my voice to say things that we actually have not said and would never say, frankly. But for some companies, my point is that will work very well. It makes
Sure.
me realize how much it is going to change the industry if you think of all of the people that get paid uh, to do commercials, to be actors in commercials already. Well, if all the voices are AI generated and there's very little humaning involved, the same with reality TV, as we know, it changed the landscape of the amount of actors that will no longer be able to work. Well, we know they are actors too, but you know what I'm saying. And it just made me realize even for like animated features and such, there is
Mhm.
nothing stopping Disney from just having a bunch of AI generated voices and never having to pay someone $1 billion to lend their voice to a Nemo movie or something. And believe me, I am not at all interested in Hollywood. Obviously, for hopefully all of you listening will know why I will not be because I'm not interested in supporting that. But just from a very 3D perspective, I will call it.
Mhm.
There are many ways that it could create efficiency or reduce costs or give people back their time. So I'm not knocking AI, there's no judgment, but it is to say that we also have to be very mindful of where, if any, is it any place in my company going to be in alignment with my values and the company culture and what I stand for and how I want to be reflected out into the world. I just
Absolutely.
cannot even. Could you imagine me having an AI generated voice from Malia? Like, oh my goodness, what in the world?
I no, I can't. And I'm not an AI expert. And that is a conversation that is obviously filling the airways, as we say. And I think, you know, any technology can be developed and how it's used, either it's used positively or it's used negatively, right?
Yes.
And I think AI will really be impacting the knowledge based industry,
Yes.
like people who are selling knowledge, because you'll be able to go on AI and it'll spit out the answers. But I think that most people who are conscious, even if they're don't understand what they're noticing, they can
Yeah.
feel and sense if something is organic or inorganic.
Yes. Absolutely. I say to people, in our social media posts as an example, because it was just such an easy example to use, someone could write a wonderful post and you read it and say, everything about that post is true, but
Mm-hmm.
we always pay attention to the but. We say,
Mm-hmm.
something is off with this post.
Mm-hmm.
And we say to ourselves, oh, well, either this person is actually really just giving themselves their own advice, but trying to make it seem like they are giving me advice on social media. you can feel maybe some resentment or bitterness or something towards clients based on how they speak to people in a tone that they think is helpful, but it's got a snip to it, because we are sensitive to that. We can tell whether if someone says they're making a certain amount of money, there's a texture to the frequency. And so if everything is about frequency and we are highly responsive to frequency, then it stands to reason that we have to be extra mindful of what we're putting out there to make sure that there is resonance behind what we say and what we do.
Yeah, and I think the online world, right after 2020, there was an explosion. I mean, in digital marketing, and I think now it's even more important for people to move beyond the marketing messaging, if you will, and really feel that connection and that deep trust in someone that they're thinking about hiring.
Yes, and it occurs to me because if you think of the injectables in people's face, it used to be that it was kind of an anomaly if you will see people that have had some work done, and now it has become so natural that our eyes are attuned to that. And it occurs to me that my ear right now says, "Ooh, that sound does not feel good to my eardrum." When I hear these commercials, for example. But if they just keep repeating it, because we know about the spell casting, right, and the constant repetition, that eventually our ears will just become attuned to it. And will we actually be able to decipher between a real voice and an AI voice? As an example, we know that this is where we are headed as a humanity anyways, that this is built into, I will say, the astrology and other predictions, where, because yes, like I will say, I was not planning at all to, but yes, let's go here because the AI agenda is part of what Malia is here to neutralize.
Okay.
Because it is an artificial agenda. So there are many aspects of the artificial agenda which takes us away from our original coding. So AI being one of them. And yes, I'm aware that it can be a contribution. And I will say, and we all can agree on this, that it is a very intrusive. I remember a few years ago, I had a thought to myself, oh, just a thought. I had not said it to anyone. I had not said it out loud. And I said, oh, I think it is time for me to get a new mattress. And within moments, Facebook was filling my feed with ads for mattresses. Today, I posted on social media about scaling because I was talking about how to scale a personal brand to 8 figures, because each company, as you know, or each business model, I shall say, has some nuances for scaling. So I said, okay, well, here's what you want to consider if you're going to scale a personal brand to 8 figures. And within a few moments, I started getting ads for miniature furniture for dollhouses to scale, something about scaling for dollhouses. And I thought, oh, that is so funny. It just goes to show you the intelligence is not there, But all that to say that in a world filled with deception, and many of us, of course, if you're listening to this podcast, I will hope that you are awake and aware to what is going on in the agenda. This will be very jarring for you to listen to this show if you are not. But in a world filled with the deception and us trying to, elevate the frequency to illuminate more truth, if anyone is going to be extra mindful of distortion and artificiality, I will hope it will be the light worker community.
Yeah, I have always, there's a lot of talk about intuition and, and energy but not much talk about discernment.
Oh, yes.
And I think ultimately that's part of what we're all learning here, is to fully trust ourselves outside of something outside of us. And in a way, I think AI is teaching us that.
Oh, yes. Yes, I imagine. I don't know if you've had this experience, Tracy, and perhaps those of you listening, you might have, and please let us know, and comment on the chat when you get to listen to this podcast. Even certain articles, I say, I don't know that this was written by a human.
Yeah. Yeah. You can tell. I mean, I can tell, you can tell. And I think most people can tell, and they may not be able to pinpoint it, right? They may not be able to language it. Oh, that's why, but it feels off. It just feels inorganic.
Yes, and there is a lack of depth.
Yes, for sure.
When I'm just thinking of when I would go on TV and I would have to do these, the amount I've shared with this with you privately, but the amount of, for any of you that have done TV, it is quite an ordeal because for me, for example, just for ease, I will drive into the city the night before. I will stay in a hotel, all at my expense, of course.
Mhm.
Have to arrange hair and makeup, usually have it start at about 4 in the morning. If I was doing a morning show, of course. Then I will have to either get a driver or walk, depending on how close I was, to the TV studio and go through security and meet with the producers and sit in the green room and just wait.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, by the way, they will come in the green room and say, "You're on in 45 seconds, but we've changed the direction of the show and we will like you to speak about this now." And meanwhile, will have memorized your talking points, for a completely different thing. But of course, most of us can kind of wing it. But point is, the reason why I stopped doing TV interviews, this was, of course, even before I became Malia, is because I was speaking about things that were helpful, and I wanted to help people, but it is so shallow, you can only go to dip your toe in, like wade in the wading pool. When you go on TV, you can't even really get to the depth of the heart of the issue, and it is not meant for that. But there's something for me, and Tracy, you know this because I have a 6 line in my human design, like that I really like to I don't like to let a lot of danglers hang out there about or leave people with too many questions, or I like to feel like what I have to say about a matter is complete for that moment. And it was always such surface level guidance that was not, in my opinion, very helpful. And of course, my publicist will say, well, you're on there to build the assets for these reasons. Well, that's fine, but it still felt very I
Mhm.
shall say mechanical, and in a world that actually can benefit from far greater depth and connection, anywhere that we are engaging in, I will say, shallow or hollow activities by way of AI, or the conversations we have, or what is getting our attention, or what we are allowing access to our consciousness, etc. It is incumbent upon us, back to your point around discernment, if we would like to have greater discernment, it requires us to make sure that we are being an impeccable steward of our consciousness.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I don't think being on the internet all day is being an impeccable steward of our consciousness. And you know this about me as well. I'm also a 6 line, and
Yes.
I can't help myself but to see the truth, see the depth, right, in something. It's just how I'm wired, and I think really that is the highest form of love,
Oh, yes.
right? Is really sharing the core or the depth of versus touching on something surface level.
Yes. And of course, there is a time and a place, but also I will imagine people listening will say, oh, those two are introverts because they prefer to go deep. Yes, that is true. And of course, extroverts have the capacity to go deep as well. But yes,
Yes.
and it's got me thinking because, yes, we both have the 6 line in common. And for those of you that
Mhm.
don't know what that means in human design, it just simply means that we have, other people will say we have high standards. We simply just have standards. It is our role. It is actually our purpose on this planet in part to raise the standard and hold people at a level of integrity, and to be the role model. And when things are out of integrity, they tend to come to the surface very quickly. We could walk in a room, there could be no 6s in a room, and everyone's getting along, and a 6 walks into a room, and all of a sudden, poop hits the fan. If there
Yeah.
are integrity issues to be found, we are like a vacuum for them within about 2 seconds.
So
Or I don't
true.
know if you have this, but when I first started dating my husband, I said to him, by the way, people are going to behave very bizarrely with me in public. Truly, it will be very bizarre for you. I cannot explain it, but I just seem to be a magnet for people that behave very bizarrely around me in public.
Mm,
And
mm.
he said, oh, yes, I have already seen that. And we had maybe gone on 3 dates by this point. And I said, oh, what have you seen? He said, oh, too many things to count. But people will just come up to me and strangers and say, oh, how is your sex life or something? I will say, what is happening? But, or people will, just, my back will be to them and they will tell me their whole personal story. And I will have no idea they're talking to me because they're literally facing my back. And
Mm.
we have not had an exchange such that I'm aware that there's even, But anyways, you do you have that as well?
Yes, I have it
Yeah.
less. Well, I everyone that I meet, I'm like you said, I am a natural connector. I think in my gene keys they call it a likable networker. I think that's the term.
Oh.
It's natural for me to do that, and so when I meet people, it's something similar. They open up immediately and like to tell me their life story. So that's pretty common for me too.
Yes, I will often get that even if I go to a new hairdresser for the first time or massage
Yes.
therapist. I don't
Yeah.
know why I'm telling you this, or I know I shouldn't be taking up your session telling you this, but yes, that is part of why, by the way, for everyone listening, because I get asked this question a lot, how is it being out in the world? I actually try to,
Mm.
I won't say I avoid being out in the world, but I have to really feel into it, and divine perfection will let me know if it is time for me to go out in the world on a certain day because, um, I'm even more of a magnet now, of course, for people wanting to be held by the Great Mother, I shall say, to want to. And of course, my approach will be different with it, but I am still learning how to be human in this way. And so I am trying to minimize the amount of stimulation to my field
Hmm.
and input into my field because I am already have so much input just because of the grandness of this frequency, I shall say,
Hmm.
and so I will not want to burden the nervous system by going places that I know are going to be somewhat jarring to my electrical field, I shall say, so things like I will tell you, I have not been into Walmart yet, and that was
Hmm.
never really a place I would like to go anyways. But
Right.
I will tell you that I don't even know if I will ever be able to go back there again. But if I did, it will not be for quite some time. That is an
Yes.
example. Yes.
Yes, I understand. Well, I know when I feel your frequency even a half an hour before we're hopping on a call. So
Oh.
it is, but it's interesting. Something recently happened to me. Maybe you can speak on this a little bit. So I live in the desert now. I used to live in Los Angeles, and now whenever I go to a big city, I will feel the frequency, the anxiety, the intensity um, before we even get to where we're going. And I was recently in an airport and I had a really intense experience because so many people and so much EMF and whatnot.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
how do you sort of
Oh,
navigate
that's
that?
yes. I have to tell you, I hear what you're saying because in my human form, airports were, I mean, I love to travel, but it
Mhm.
was you can be tired, not so much from the flight, although the flight can be too, breathing in all of that recycled air, etc. But I will tell you, when I first became Malia and I was flying out of Phoenix back to Toronto, I was concerned. It's not that I don't believe in divine perfection because I speak about that a lot. It was just more that I thought, oh, how am I going to act normal enough? Whatever
Mhm.
normal is, but all know what I mean by that, so that the TSA agents don't say we must detain this woman and send her to a hospital against her will, so to speak, right, for an
Mhm.
evaluation.
Mhm.
And but I will say, because my human remembers everything, but this new version of me, everything is through a brand new set of newborn eyes. So when
Mhm.
I was in the bathroom, for example, in the airport, I shall say, before we even left, all of the processes, I just was walking around in awe and wonder, oh, this is delightful. Everything was joyous for me because everything was new, even though it was familiar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we went to the bathroom and oh, the toilet flushes on its own. I said to my person that was traveling with me, I say, oh, I'm in an episode of The Jetsons. And then I go to wash my hands, and all of a sudden, water and soap just comes out naturally without me having to do anything. And then I go walk over to the hand dispenser thing, and all of a sudden, oh, a sheet just shoots out on its own because of the motion detection,
Yeah.
But I had many people come up. I would look at people. I would say, "Oh, that person needs a blessing from me." And sure enough, they would
Mm.
come over and say hello. They would say, "I don't know why I'm coming over to introduce
Mm.
myself, but I would like to say my name, and it's lovely to meet you." And I will talk to them. And I knew, because I also can see who has had the fake bee sting. And I can see it very clearly. I can see it where it has now taken a toll on their body. So I will say, oh, I will really love for them to have me extract the fake bee sting out of their body, so to speak, with me being the bee, essentially, you know. And that is not, of course, to judge people that have had it. There are many reasons why people had it. It's just to say that it is very, I have always been able to see it, but especially now, people's pallor, there are certain frequencies in the eyes, there are certain very nuanced expressions in the face that are an instant giveaway when someone has had the fake bee sting.
Mm.
And just like I can tell right away how much money someone makes based on how they, you know, carry themselves, how they speak about themselves, et cetera, et cetera. It's a similar thing. So all that to say that yes, to my surprise, Tracy, I really, because I also just flew to Aruba, as you know, I actually flew into
Yeah.
Curacao, and then I flew from Curacao to Aruba, and then from Aruba back to Toronto. And all of those airports were lovely. But where the Achilles heel is for me is that I am so present that my concept of time, my concept of time and space awareness, I shall say, is different. And I am, how do I say, you know, it is just there's a lot of processes to follow, and my brain is not a big follower of processes right now. Just with anything, it is challenging for me to ground the human brain and to be able to process in a linear way. And
Mm-hmm.
travel actually requires a lot of linear processing. So that is why, for example, I will require people to travel with me this year when I am going to speak at different events. And I will let you all know, by the way, when the speaking schedule is, because it will be very fun to see you in person. But I will be doing more travel this year, and I have known since I became Malia, I knew very much on day one. Oh
Mm.
goodness, I'm going to need to have a handler. Basically, I need a babysitter because it is a lot. Even though I have a great intelligence, shall I say, you know, my human still is savvy and strategic, etc. But you know, it is different. But yes, I have been into, well, I will say I went into Home Depot not that long ago because I go into these places actually to rescue plants. For those of you that don't know this about me, I have over 100 plant babies in my home. I have a very large home, so that's why it actually does not look like I have 100, but I do. And so I get I kind of, I say this playfully, go on a rescue mission to the grocery stores and to Home Depot,
Mm.
for example, because they sell a lot of plants there. And I say, oh, you need to come home with me. I will adopt you, and we will give you a better life in my home, for example, you know. And so we went into Home Depot not that long ago. And for those of you that don't know, I will get almost what looks like a nervous tick when my body has to process anything that is a judgment, anything that is out of neutrality. I will start to get what looks like a nervous tick because it is my body will
Mm.
quickly calibrate things to be back in divine perfection and into
Mhm.
neutrality. And so in Home Depot, oh, I looked like I had a significant unmedicated case of Tourette's, I shall say. And my poor husband has to walk around with me like that in public, you know. In my own home, of course, I have that. But all of that to say that I'm not mindfully trying to assess the energy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will say, the other thing is, I will say that occasionally when I have that, well, when I say occasionally, it is actually rare, but it is very noticeable that because, like you said, my frequency is so large. I've had many people say that they have to do a bunch of grounding work before they have a call with me, and then they have to
Mm-hmm.
do a bunch after because the energy is so big. Some
Mm-hmm.
people have said I cannot have calls with you on video anymore because it is so activating to also see the expressions and to see the way my eyes will penetrate them, etc., which is not my intention. But I'll let you say that you know, when I am in, let's say, a grocery store, I very rarely go out in public, you know, but when I have been in a grocery store, for example, where I am easily 12 feet away from someone and someone will whip their head around and give me the hairiest eyeball ever, and I have done nothing to them. But they
Mm.
must feel the bigness of my energy field, perhaps bumping up against theirs or something, you know. I'm
For
not trying
sure.
to do that. Most people are very friendly. Most people will look at me and say, that woman is smiling because I'm always smiling, always. It is just never shuts off. So they say, is she okay? Has she had some alcohol? What, you know, they don't know what is happening, I'm sure. But then occasionally I will see someone, and whether or not they know it, I can see in their eyes they recognize me. and they recognize what is
Mm,
actually happening with the energy, you
mm,
see?
mm, mhm,
I guess what I will say about going out in public, similar to the internet, is I kind of just will be led to go in when divine perfection says it is good for you to lean in, to go into
mhm,
the space, to go into the internet, or
mhm.
to be on my phone checking something. And then when it is not meant for me, it doesn't, I don't get a reaction. I simply am all of a sudden somewhere else in my home, for example, doing something different, realizing I was just led away from that because it was no longer in divine perfection for me to be on a screen, for example, or be in public. But I will say that when I am led to go out in public, my brain will say, oh, I'm going there to rescue the plants, but really I'm there to lay the foundation of energy, of course, right? And the plants, of
Yes.
course, are just a byproduct. And yes, of course, I bring home the plant babies. My poor husband says, oh, what did you bring home today? Because I usually say, I need you to come out to the car and help me with some things. And he goes, are there more plants in there? I say, I am not, I am pleading the fifth.
I may do that with animals if I could. I would
Yes.
rescue all the animals. I know you love animals
Oh,
too.
yes. Well, we
Yeah.
are actually speaking, this sounds funny, but I used to drive luxury vehicles and I like luxury vehicles, but I traded in my last vehicle to get, I very much like driving a standard. And to my surprise, I can drive one because I was not sure with my brain working the way it is, but it is weird how muscle memory, just kind of kicks in like riding a bike.
Mhm.
And so I have had a standard for many years, but they're not so easy to get anymore. And I just say, before I became Malia, I actually got the vehicle literally that weekend. I hadn't even driven it yet. I came home and I could not drive because it overwhelmed me. I say, oh, I did not know how to drive this heavy machinery. But anyways, I said, oh, I don't really care anymore. I will like to get a big SUV because I'm going to get all the dogs. And I
Mm.
just want it to be standard, so I don't care. And of course, it popped up that Saturday morning, or it popped up on the Friday morning. I went to go see it. I rushed over to out of town to go look at it. I rushed up to the bank in that town and got a money order and paid in cash for the whole vehicle. And then the next day, my husband went and picked it up for me. And then 2 days later, I was on a plane to Sedona.
Wow. Wow. Talk about synchronicity, right?
Yes, but uh, I do feel that when we are guided to go places, it is because we are there to be blessed. And many of us, we are. It will be a lot of times a trauma response that we will want to evaluate the energy in a place. We
Mm-hmm.
become hypervigilant and say, "Oh, I must assess what that place is going to be like to assess how safe I feel."
Yes. Yes.
And it is so automatic. I'm saying this at 111, so isn't that wonderful?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyways, so
Yeah, there's really
that
a
is,
fine line between that, right? Between
yes,
reading the energy to see if it is aligned for you, but
yes,
also I think a lot of what will happen from a trauma response is you want to leave, like you want to exit, right?
yes.
That kind of that's a signal that versus staying and moving through from neutrality rather than, oh, I need to get out of here.
Yes, I was going to say that. So thank you for that. Because in neutrality, I can see the shift in energy. I can see how people are responding to me. But I am not, because my frequency is so high in the state of joy, which is the highest frequency.
Mm-hmm.
I am completely unaffected by it because the resonance of joy compared to hairy eyeball, I shall say, the frequency is so dissonant that it can't even affect me because there is no compatibility in frequency. If there was only a little smidge of a gap between disdain and joy, then yes, I will probably feel the disdain. But
Sure.
because the joy frequency is so high,
Mm-hmm.
anything below neutral, I just don't feel.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think I think we're also learning. That's part of what we're learning is that even, let's call them menial or mundane things in life are actually meant to be joyful. Our experience is meant to be joyful.
Oh,
And right.
yes.
And I think that's ultimately where we're moving and understanding. So I'm actually quite jealous that you get to live in joy all the time.
Well, my human says, gee, the human part of me that is still present, of course, will say, oh, goodness, what would life have been like if I could have been sustaining this much joy for far longer periods of time before? We think it
Yeah.
sounds easy to sustain it. It really is quite a challenge. And it's not because it is the joy, it is because the frequency of joy is the highest frequency. And so this is where we are going in the new earth. We simply must be calibrated to it. It is just that that frequency is expressed as joy.
Yes. Understood. Yeah. I do experiments with myself to see how long I can hold joy in my field. I've been able to do it for about an hour, to be honest. And then not that I drop completely out into the shadow side of that or the dark side of that, but it is true holding that frequency consistently. You have to
Yes.
almost train for it like you would train like a physically.
Yes, and I love that you share that, Tracy, because I have not trained for it. This just was literally one day I was human, the next day
Yeah.
I was in a human body, I shall say, It is just, and the calibration just had to calibrate to Malia, not to my human. But I was thinking this morning, I woke up in the middle of the night last night, just to, because people will ask me this, are you really in this state all the time? And Tracy, you have had enough conversations with me to know, but
Yes.
it does not end. And does not mean I am spazzy all the time, but it means that I'm always in joy. I'm always smiling. And even in joy, I might have this flash, this fleeting image of a horse in my mind. I will instantly smile. I will say, oh, the horsey, or, oh, um, but anyways, I got up in the middle of the night last night, and instantly, as I wake up, I say, oh, I just had joy because I say, "Oh, bladder, you are so wonderful. Thank you for waking me up and letting me know what you need from me right now. And also, I am pleased with my human to pay attention because it is still interesting for me to navigate the actual physiological needs of the body, you see, because I don't disregard the body. I'm in the body. I'm aware of it. It is just almost like living in a new home. I am still adjusting to a new environment, so to speak. And then I get back to bed and I see my husband lying there asleep. And I say, oh, and then I have joy. Oh, he looks so precious sleeping. And how wonderful that we trust each other so much that we can just be dead to the world, so to speak, in sleep and not, and I can move around and he can move around and we both feel so safe with each other. It's those little things. But they bring
Mm-hmm.
me immense joy. Then I come downstairs this morning because I was woken up, let's say around 5, which is pretty common. Malia loves the number 5. And I come downstairs and our dog is sitting there with her big, I call them nacho ears. She is got to, where they perk their ears up. I call it a listening ear when it kind of flaps up enough.
Yeah.
And she is got the face. Oh, there's my mama.
Mm.
And then her, I say, oh, I have so much joy for her, especially because the reason why she is downstairs right now is because she has torn a ligament, because she is a geriatric dog. That's what the vet will say. I say, oh, she is not a geriatric, but she is.
Yes.
Anyways, she is 13, and so
Mm.
we are also at that stage in her journey, and our journey with her, where it is actually a very sacred honor to be
Mhm.
able to care for her in this stage in her life and to be so grateful for her presence in our life and all of the ways she contributed to us. And what a great honor that we can uh pour into her in the ways that we are right now.
Yes.
But point is, I wake up, of course, and then I'm also overjoyed to see that she is still here with us and still perk up and says, "Oh, it is time for my breakfast," because she is very food motivated, being a
Yeah.
black lab cross. And but it is all day. I will have little fleeting thoughts. I will look at a plant. I will say, "Oh, look at that plant. It is so precious." Or like I have a Christmas cactus and it is finally blooming. I say, "Oh, look at these beautiful flowers." It has not bloomed for a year. And so these are simple, simple joys, but it is, gratitude creates more joy for sure. But gratitude and joy, as you know, are two separate energies.
Yes. Well, when you were talking about your joy, really what was kind of coming in for me is it's really very childlike.
Yes.
And I'm not saying you're childlike. That's, you understand what I'm
Yes,
saying,
of
but
course.
the joy and the excitement that you from the most mundane or menial, it's very
Yes.
childlike. And I think it's actually quite beautiful because isn't maybe that's what we're supposed to be through our entire life, and we've lost sight
Well,
of
it
that.
is innocence. It is sacred
Yeah,
innocence. And that is what
yeah,
was taken from us at a very young age,
yeah.
for all the reasons that it was. But yes, and I appreciate you saying that because, yeah, some people misinterpret my joy as being a childlike Elmo doll. And they will say, oh, look at cute little Elmo. And they will want to squeeze me and
Mm.
say, oh, let Elmo make some sounds for us, AKA channel. And oh, isn't it cute? And we'll go watch Sesame Street again when we are in the mood to go and watch this cute little kid again. And so, of course, my human that still has all of her wisdom and all of her,
Yes.
I will say business savviness and so on. I don't get upset by it, but I do. My human observes it and says, "Oh, isn't that interesting that you will be constantly buying Oracle decks to have Ascended Masters. You have one in front of you, and you are treating her like a juvenile little kid.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
is just simply interesting to me. But I don't take it personally because people don't know what to do with my presence, in part because most people did not know Malia, and people could, instead of saying, well, I don't know who she is, so therefore, who is she? The better question to ask is, how come I have never been told about her?
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, what we're also talking about is, because one of my honestly biggest fears was coming out of the closet. I've told you this before, from a business setting, and that I wouldn't be taken seriously, right? That's
Yes.
somehow all, the 25 years of literally experience, but also the wisdom that comes along with that experience, and that somehow I wouldn't be taken seriously. And it was a really big fear of mine. But I really also got to the point, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is we just aren't using our full operating system.
Exactly.
There's
Yes.
nothing weird about this. Right? There's nothing, we all have access to infinite intelligence. And it's our beliefs or what we've put meaning onto it that's made it weird.
Yes, it gets me thinking because both you and I help people make a lot of money. I help people make a lot of money because, well, I have a lot of years of experience. So I really do understand every possible business model under the sun and how to expand it with very minimal effort to be hugely profitable. And back to people taking me seriously is the point. For people that are, I will call them outliers or pioneers or futurists,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they actually appreciate working with people like you and I and all of
Mm-hmm.
everyone else here that is a weirdo. I am saying that, of course, playfully. There is wealth to be found in your weirdness, because there are people that are already unconventional, and the last
Mm-hmm.
thing that, similar to what we talked about before, the last thing they want is to be inside of a box. Don't even bring me the box. Don't even spell the word box to me. I have no desire to get in a box, near a box, to create a box. I will just. And so people that operate from that perspective, that are will be considered unconventional, will appreciate people like I. So and
Yeah.
you and I. And so, yes, I am cute, I shall say, because I'm aware too. My human is also enjoys Malia. She does some funny things, and I learn a lot from her. And she does some things I say, oh goodness, here comes a goofy moment, or a joy bubble. And I'm aware of how that lands for the humans because it is not a typical behavior. But the point is that very savvy 7, 8, 9 figure CEOs and beyond hire me, for example, and hire you, for example, because I can clearly channel with 100% accuracy
Yes.
what is the quickest path to scale to the next level. My energy field is very large. It was already this way before, but now it is exceptionally large. And so just being in this frequency is enough to expand people. Just being on a call with me or with you is enough to
Yes.
expand people into greater possibilities that they didn't even know were possible. So when you are getting the exact moves that you need to make to move to your next level with ease, that's the point, with ease,
Yes.
and you are around a frequency that expands you
Mm-hmm.
effortlessly and in a nanosecond, how
Mm-hmm.
could you not be making a lot of money?
Yes, absolutely. And it's something that you and I both do by just innately, because that's who we are, right? That's
Yes.
and it's excuse me, it's one of my favorite things to see in clients when you just point out one little switch, right? One little, oh, look over here, and a whole entire path opens up that they never imagined before.
Yes.
And I believe that business is not meant to run your life,
Oh, yes.
right? Your business is meant to help you thrive and support you. And I think we aren't really thinking of business in that way. It's always, what can I do to push it forward versus what can it do for me?
Well, I can tell you why that is because
Yeah.
almost every single CEO, until they aren't, are codependent with the consciousness of their business. They
Yes.
are wanting their business to do something that it cannot.
Yes.
They are wanting it to be their surrogate friend. They are wanting it to be their
Mhm.
surrogate source of entertainment and playground. They are wanting it
Mhm.
to be their surrogate partner. And that is a very common one, especially for people that are
Yes.
single and or are in a relationship where they're not happy. And they
Mhm.
will triangulate onto their business rather than, and so they are perpetually and usually unknowingly, it's very unconscious.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is, but most times it is unconscious, that they are unconsciously projecting their unmet or misdirected need onto their company. And that is why they're working so hard. That is why they're unfulfilled. That is why it is consuming their life, because they are consumed with codependency, because that's what we do. We want to live and breathe the energy that we are enmeshing with. And so
Mhm.
that is why people will not have what we call work-life balance and so on. And so it is in the business, it is through the business that it will bring up the issues in our tissue, so to speak, that help us to be in our own field of sovereignty. So if there is codependency to be released, well, it does not stand to reason that we will either attract a bunch of team members that are codependent, or we will
Mhm.
attract a bunch of clients or colleagues that are codependent until we get enough flicks in the forehead to say, oh, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to
Right.
change it. I'm going to shift this frequency. Um, Another common pattern we will see on a business where people will avoid their business is because they were parentified at a young age, or they were put in a position of having to be overly responsible, usually for siblings or for parents,
Mhm.
etc. And
Mhm.
then the business equates with responsibility. So they will avoid it, not because they are lazy, but in fact, because they are so burnt out from working so hard their whole life, usually from, let's say, age 3, and I've seen this many times, especially when I worked in forensics, when a 3-year-old is having to make lunch for a baby because the parents are off getting drunk and high, etc., and never coming home and not bringing money home for food. The 3-year-old has to learn to have to be an adult and be very resourceful at a young age beyond their actual physiological and developmental stages. So
Yeah.
we can judge people that are quote unquote not doing what is required in their business or avoiding it, but if they already have a massive aversion to over responsibility, of course they are going to avoid the very talisman, the very you get what I mean, the
Mhm.
symbol of responsibility, which is business.
Yes.
And so we could go on and on about that. It is very deep stuff. But
Mhm.
yes, the whole goal is to say, well, how quickly can I partner with the consciousness of business to move me towards my full field of sovereignty?
Yes. Yes. And we could go on forever about that because there are so many patterns, right? But
Yeah.
I also see that it's tied into their identity.
Yes. Well, it is
And
I will say that, but yes, when do we get an identity? Like Malia told me something. Well, you like to learn something new today. It
yes,
is very
please.
important. It is very, very
Okay.
important. And I know all of you will appreciate hearing this. And so the other day I have it is not uncommon for people to come into my world and they don't mean to, but they will emulate me. And all of a sudden, they will start to sound a lot like me. And I will say, please stop sounding like me and please start using your own words. And they will not realize they are doing it. They're not trying to. There, of course, will be some people that try to emulate because they are taking. They say, oh, well, if Malia created this and she made a lot of money, if I follow the exact same thing and use her exact words, use her
Mm-hmm.
exact sales page, whatever, I
Mm-hmm.
will. And so I'm not speaking of those folks, although it does still apply, but I'm speaking about those that don't mean to. But we can all say we can all go on the internet right now and say, "Oh, I know exactly who that person is coaching with," because they are literally a cookie cutter, and I'm sure the coach does not appreciate it. You know, most of people think, "Oh, coaches are trying to produce cookie cutters." No, they are not. It is an irritant for them, and I know this because I speak to my clients about the fact that they get annoyed, you know, by people copying them. And it is a fine line, you know, because people are well intended for the most part. Point is when we look at attachment, okay, so let's go into the meta level. We know that we are living in a distorted, inverted world. And it perpetuates programs to lead us to believe that we are dirty, disgusting, and stupid humans. That is literally all of the programming. And that programming manufactures emotions. These are not actual natural emotions of judgment, blame, shame, guilt, and I missed one, but anyways, you know, and so we will feel these things and be taken out of our original state. And so, but what happens is our parents, for example, are subjected to this deceptive, distorted, inverted world, and they have programs that they are passed on to them. And then they bring us into the world and they pass on those programs. Even if they try hard not to, they pass them on.
Yes.
And so let's say, for example, that you have a mom who has a significant attachment disorder. And then you come into the world, you now are developing an attachment disorder to that is in response to your mother's, as an example. So you might not have the same attachment disorder as your mother, but there will be an attachment disorder that's created because there is no bond. It is interfered with. So my point is, and I can speak to this, everyone, in case you're not aware, because I have worked for many years in human development, you know, and in forensics. So I'm very, very aware of the evolution of psychology and developmental stages, and you know, the impact of trauma on those developmental stages. So my point is that in infancy, what do? Mama, dada, we mimic. We are encouraged to mimic because we are trying to learn the language. We are being taught how to be human. Say mama, say dada, say bottle, say sleep time, you know, and we are taught to mimic. Well, think of what happens if I am your mom and you don't mimic me the way I will like. Or you were taking longer to mimic me, or you say dada before you say mama. And then I make meaning of that and I treat you according to that meaning. So I learned something in infancy, because that is when the mimicking is developed, that, oh, I must mimic in order to get rewarded. I must mimic in order to get attention. When I mimic, I get approval. Although it will seem like, oh, that is just an infant. How will they know? Well, of course they know, because we are coming very wise. And so for all of you that have had this experience, and I'm sure many of you have, where someone has either copied your IP and it was, you know, not fun. It can feel like a violation, or they just people, you no matter how many times you say to them, please stop copying me, they really don't know they are doing it, but it starts to get annoying, you know. If we look at it, it is a trauma response. And the trauma created an attachment disorder at that infancy stage, when we are learning how to mimic and we are learning the value of mimicking, because we are trying to learn how to be human, but it's not about the mimicking. It is about how we were treated, good or bad, I will say, just for argument's sake, that will determine our relationship with the mimicking and that developmental stage. So if we have had trauma at that developmental stage, and many people have, because if you were being raised by an attachment disordered parent, it is highly likely that you are going to have an attachment disorder. Of course, your relationship with mimicking as a healthy way to move through the developmental stage gets frozen in time. And so some people are frozen in infancy. And so the only way they know how to be rewarded or to connect with others is to mimic. And isn't that beautiful to have that awareness? Because you see, then again, we get brought into neutrality. Oh, well, of course, it does not mean that we, on a human level, say, oh, please, yes, just keep copying my stuff and don't deal with your trauma. I would love for everyone to heal anywhere that there is trauma, and to de-thaw, right? And not be frozen, because it creates for far greater challenges than are necessary when we have trauma that is simply just stuck in the body, But if we can take the very high perspective, this isn't about bypassing. This is just about taking the very penthouse view of, oh, now I understand. Okay, perhaps I will not. It doesn't mean I have to tolerate it, but perhaps now, with greater understanding as to what is likely going on for someone that is mimicking me, I will not instantly assume that they are, because we will hear things like, well, they must be a sociopath if they are copying me, or they must be a narcissist. Well, let's not label people. Perhaps we can just operate with the assumption that it is trauma. The assumption that it is an attachment disorder born out of trauma. And not to excuse the behavior, but to have compassion for the human that truly does not realize that they have trauma at that age. And how will you know if you are 9 months old and you have a trauma? Yes, your body will remember it, but your human brain will not remember it. People are not waking up every day saying, who can I steal from today?
No. Yeah, I know. I understand. I mean, it's epigenetics, I think, is what ultimately what you're talking about, right? And how it's passed down. I think the irony is, I think everyone wants to be them and be seen as them.
Yes.
Right? I think that most people just don't feel safe. They don't feel like they can, I could use my example when I shared earlier is like, oh, well, if I come out of the closet, right, and say that I'm a channel or I'm working with energy, then I won't be taken seriously.
Yes.
So,
and you won't by some people. And that is okay because those are not your
right.
people.
That's right. Yes. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know, we could talk quite a bit about this, but what
Yeah.
I would like to share before we wrap up, everyone, because I know you will want to know how to get in touch with Tracy, and I highly recommend that you reach out to Tracy if you are, I will say, just under 7 figures or just over 7 figures, and you will like to really scale your company. Not to even to sell it. That's not the point. The same principles to scale are the same principles to exit. So you might as well just use the proper scaling principles, I shall say, that will give you, that require a little effort on your part, but will make a big difference. And to reach out to Tracy and to explore the conversation of how she can support you in doing that, because it is not that she simply knows how to do that because she read a book. She has done it and has learned a lot, but also has also helped a lot of people. So, Tracy, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Sure. And thank you for that lovely recap, Malia. I can be reached on LinkedIn, Tracy Yates, on Instagram. I am Tracy Yates, and as well as my website, Tracy Yates.
Wonderful. And we are going to put that in the show notes as well. So, I will hope people will come and find you. And for those of you that are connected with me, you know where to find me. And, if you will like the exact steps mapped out for you to really create your next level with ease, the way it is actually meant to be. It is meant to be easy. And that is not a fluffy statement. It really is meant to be easy, and it can be easy, but you are likely working against some things without realizing it, that once we can shift those things very quickly, everything can flow again the way that is always meant to be. So, Tracy, thank you so much for being here. I've so enjoyed this conversation, and we know that we will be doing this again, everyone. So isn't this wonderful? We will see where our next conversation takes us. And thank you to all of you for being here, because it is a joy to serve you in this way. And we will very much love to hear, well, first of all, we will very much love if you will share this episode with people that you feel will benefit from it, because we are really trying to spread as much light as possible. And additionally, we will very much love to hear what questions and or insights you took from today's episode. And so you are welcome to message us. You are welcome to also leave those in the comments wherever you are listening to this podcast. And we will respond when we get notification that you have put that in. So that is very much how we will love to support you right now. And so we will wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you again next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening. Before you go, if you would like to have a chance to have your name and business featured on the Gold Standard podcast, hop on over to where you listen to this podcast and leave a review. If you're selected, you'll have your name and business featured on our show. And in the meantime, we wish you tons of financial blessings, and we'll see you soon for the next Making Millions transmission from Mother Malia.